Hello, my name is Dan Bonarigo from Riverside Brookfield High School in Riverside, Illinois, and welcome to another AP Daily practice session to help you prepare for the AP test. In this practice session, we will be focusing on the create performance task, specifically the video, the program code, including the PPR or the personalized project reference, and written response number 1. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so a couple reminders about submitting to Digital Portfolio. So what do you have to submit? So you have to submit a video which shows the program running, including input and output. Do not include any distinguishing information about yourself and voice narration. So you do not want to include voice narration. All right, so the scoring guides for the video, scoring guidelines for the video. So the video demonstrates the running of the program, including input, program functionality, and output. All right, and important to note that the video cannot be solely screenshots or a storyboard. It actually must be a video showing your program running. You do not need to show the program code in your video. All right, so what else are we submitting to Digital Portfolio? We are submitting a PDF of the entire program code, which is why you don't need to show it in the video. So your program code must include the following items: input and output, the use of a procedure that uses at least one parameter and contains an algorithm that uses sequencing, selection, and iteration, and a call to that procedure, use of a list or other collection type to represent a collection of data that is stored and used to manage program complexity and help fulfill the program's purpose. All right, so here are the scoring guidelines. Okay, now this includes the program code and the PPR. So I'll talk more about this, okay, but the program must include the following: a list, a procedure, a call to the procedure, selection, and iteration. Okay, now, important to note, okay, the procedure must be included, and up here I said that it must include a parameter. Now, you will be able to earn the point for the program code if the procedure does not have an explicit parameter. So notice this first bullet under scoring notes: a procedure without an explicit parameter may earn this point. However, it is important to note that you will not earn a point later on for a question that may relate to the procedure or the argument for the procedure later on in your written responses. So it is important to note that. All right, code segments with selection and iteration do not need to be in the procedure or in the same algorithm to earn this point. A one-element list will not earn this point. An irrelevant or unused list will not earn this point. And then the use of trivial selection or iteration will not earn this point. All right, so that's the program code. All right, so now we're going to move on, all right, to the PPR. So this is specifically the portions of your code that you are highlighting for your AP test written exam. All right, so you must include in the procedure selection, including 2 program code segments that have the following: a procedure that uses a parameter. So remember, we talked about this parameter piece. All right. A call to the procedure. So there are 2 sections and you're including those 2 items. Okay. In the list section, you're going to include 2 program code segments that include the following: showing data being stored in a list, and then showing how this same list is being used in the program. All right. So important to note, points are not specifically awarded for the PPR, other than what we previously mentioned for the code segment, okay? But you will reference your PPR during the written response portion of the exam on exam day. So it is really important that you remember, you will not have access to the entire program code. You will only have access to what you put on the PPR on exam day. So really important to make sure that you remember that. All right. So those are all the things that we have submitted, okay? But now I'm going to show you some examples, Okay, so here is a sample PPR for a program that we're calling Pet Recommender. So this is a program that is created, it asks the user some questions, and then it spits out a pet that is recommended for the user based on their answers. All right, so here is a screenshot of the procedure section, okay? And then we want to make sure we note, okay, we're defining a procedure, and it has an explicit parameter input. And then you can see later on the input parameter is referenced. And so that shows how the parameter is being used, okay? Then we also want to make sure that it has iteration and selection. So you can see this for I in range, and then if input equals A. And so we are using selection and iteration. It is trivial because you see this thing would iterate 4 times. This would not earn the program code point. Next, we want to make sure we have a call to the procedure. So there are 4 calls that are highlighted here, and so that would meet those requirements. Next, we have the list section. So here's a list. And then you can see here is where the list is being used, right? So if answer is in yes list, so we're accessing all the elements of that list. Okay, so that's a sample PPR. Okay, note, comments are not allowed in the PPR. So you do see here that this student has comments in, so those would need to be removed. If you have comments, okay, that means you will get a 0 on the written response portion. So please make sure that you have removed comments. All right, next, here is a sample PPR for maze game. All right, so here is a procedure that has a parameter, difficulty, and you can see that difficulty is referenced. Then we have a repeat until, and then we have an if, so we're using selection and iteration. And then we have a call to the procedure here. You can see where difficulty answer is being called with the parameter or with the argument answer. All right. In the list section, we can see this list, okay, called water hit list. And then you can see water hit list is being referenced in this repeat until. And so we are using that. All right. Next, another sample PPR for a choose your own adventure game. All right, and so you see here we have a procedure that is defined called dragon. Notice here there is no explicit parameter. Okay, we'll talk more about that in a minute. You can see where dragon is being called. All right, in the list section, you see a list here, stats equals 0, 0, 0. And then you can see here 2 different places where stats is being provided with different values, 3, 1, random number, right? And then you can see stats 0, stats 1, stats 2, stats 0, stats 1, stats 2, right? So we are using those values. However, important to note, okay, explicit parameters are required for written responses. So this procedure does not have an explicit parameter, okay? Also, this procedure over here does not have iteration either. There is no repetition of portions of code, and so this would not earn the program code point. All right, so now let's look at some sample written response prompts. All right, so very important to note, these practice questions are sample responses. These are for illustrative purposes only. Scoring guidelines for the create performance task and written response prompts will be unique every year and are not provided in advance. So these are just samples to help you understand what prompts may look like, but these are not the exact prompts that you will have. All right, so the first written response, the prompt will be related to program design, function, and purpose. So let's read this. Explain how the input to your program is received and how expected corresponding outputs are produced as a result. So input, output. All right, so here is a sample response. The user will input answers to the questions presented to them by typing with the keyboard, and depending on how they answered, the output will be the personalized pet recommendation. For each range of points earned, a certain type of pet will be recommended. So you can see answers to the questions presented by typing with the keyboard, that is the specific input, and then the output would be the personalized pet recommendation. So how are we scoring this? The response explains how the input is received. Yes. It gives corresponding output. Yes. Explains how output is produced. So, important note, the response must state specifically how input is given to the program, and the response must be accurate and consistent with the student's program. So all of these scoring criteria are met, and so this would earn the point for written response 1. All right, let's take a look at the next one. Same prompt, so input and output. Okay, but now this is for the next program. This is for the maze game. The user will use the WASD keys to direct the character through a maze. If the character touches any of the objects on the screen, that user will be sent back to the beginning of the maze. If the character is able to make it through the maze without touching anything, they will have the chance to fight a boss, depending on if they selected easy or hard. So they've used the WASD keys, right? And if the character touches any of the objects on the screen, that user will be sent back to the beginning of the maze. So have they explained how input is received? Yes. Have they given corresponding output? Yes. And explained how the output is produced? Yes. So they have met these scoring criteria. And so this would be an example of a written response that would earn this point. All right, one more example, and this one is going to be related to the Choose Your Own Adventure game. So same thing, input and output. All right, the user will use the mouse to click on buttons on the screen, which will change text, images, and sounds output by the computer. The user has to click on different buttons depending on how they want to advance through the Choose Your Own Adventure game. All right, so have they done what they needed to do? So they use the mouse to click on buttons, yes, and it will change text, images, sounds output by the computer. So have they met the scoring criteria? Explained how input is received? Yes. Gives corresponding output? Yes. And explains how output is produced? Yes. And so this would be another example of a response that would earn the point for written response 1. All right. And so that is it for written response 1. So be sure to enjoy the next video, which will talk about written responses for prompt number 2. All right. Thank you so much for joining.